Look at the second one, and what we're going to do, we're going to elaborate on this example, and I'm going to show you some of the tools that allow you to debug your JavaScript. Alright, so I'm going to create a border on this canvas. Now you can do this, of course, using cascading style sheet, but that's not the topic of this lecture. So I'm going to say fill style equal to orange, and I'm gonna say again, use the same example we've done before, and then create call, and then set a different point here. Now I'm going to start at 5, 5, so to create a border, let's make it easier, make it 10, big border, so 10, 10, and here I'm going to say 380 because it will be 10 from each side, so it's 380, so minus 20, and here 5, 80. Now I'm going to make a mistake on purpose, and I'll show you the purpose of that in a minute. So if I do viewing Chrome, I expect to see a border, an orange color rectangle inside of this rectangle, give you an impression of a border because you're drawing on top of each other. The problem is that we have a syntax error, or a function. We're trying to call a function that does not exist. And the way I find it, I go to Google Chrome, I go to Tools, and I go to Developer Tools, and then you'll see you have this window appears, and then you'll see that you have an error here. You see that? If you look at the source code, we have a problem with the source code here. There is actually, because I'm using an ordered Chrome, usually you should see actually the source. Okay, it'll show you the source code in here, and then you can put breakpoints if you want, so you can debug it. But it's telling me I have a problem here. In Dreamweaver it says fine, but here when you actually try to run it in the browser, it's telling you, oh wait a minute, you have a problem. This is a very good debugger, just like any debugger you find in any IDE that allow you to set breakpoints, watch, and all of that. Okay, let's fix the problem. Go back to Dreamweaver, fix the problem. So the problem was this here. If I view it in Chrome, yes, I want to save it now. Okay, we have still a problem because why didn't it show? Okay, tools again, developer tools. There is no problem, so I have a problem with the color. Maybe the orange maybe is misspelled. All right, let's look at Dreamweaver or orange. All right, now let's do test again. Preview in Chrome, yes, and then you see the border. All right, so that is a simple tool that allows you to draw different rectangles on top of each other, give you an impression with the rectangle with the border. All right, good. So I want to have other thing with this little bit, add more things to our JavaScript, and I'm going to call a function here. I'm going to create a function. Now if you haven't used JavaScript before, this is how you create a function, and I'm going to call this function draw rectangle in the center. Okay, draw center. Okay, the reason I'm doing that, it serves 2 points: teaching you how to create functions in JavaScript, and how my previous recording started, so let me pause this. as I was saying before this, I stopped. I'm creating a function just to show you a few things. The purpose of this, how to create a function, and how to call a function at the same. Okay. The other part is that how to access some of the canvas properties. For example, if I want to draw a rectangle in the center, I don't want to hard code every time this, because that's not a good way of doing it. You want to actually, once you set the heights and the width here in the HTML tag, in JavaScript, you just access them dynamically. So if you change that, these won't automatically change. So how would we do that? So first, I'm going to say, because these variables, canvas and context, are defined outside the function, means they are global variable in this HTML page, that means that I can access them here again, access them without having to define them again. So all I have to do, I'll say context fill style will go style equal, let's say green, and now to draw in the center, I can starting point in the center, context dot draw rectangle or fill rectangle, and the point here is going to start as at canvas dot width divided by 2, and the height again is canvas, for the y coordinate, canvas dot height divided by 2. Okay, and for the width and the height, I'm going to use 200. 200 is too big. 100. Okay. All right, let's test it and see how it works. Now, this function is not being called yet, so you're doing all this fine, but how do I call this function? All I do is just simply name the name of the function, which is what? Draw center, and then this is how would you call it, right? And in here you just review in Chrome. Yes, we want to test it, and here is my rectangle. Now if you look at it, you'll say that it's not in the center, but it is. That point is in the center. If you want the whole rectangle in the center, then you have to do a little bit of math to calculate this point here in reference to this point. So you will have to say, instead of width divided by 2, you'll say width divided by 2, and then minus the width of this, and again for the height you do the same thing. If you want me to show you, I'll show you quickly. So here I'm gonna say minus 50, and here minus 50, and then you'll see, because that is minus 50, what I did is that I took the 100 divided by 2, I got 50, and I subtracted from the width and the height. So now if you view it in Chrome, you'll see that it has, now it looks in the center. All right, good. Now the reason I did that, because I want to teach you how to create a function. So when we do that with HTML tag and say yes, define a button, on click, call a particular button, this is what we're going to do. Let's add a button to our HTML, and I'll add it after the canvas. So, well, let's add it I'll add it before the canvas, because we don't have space under the canvas. Alright, go back to HTML. If you want to add a button. Of course, you can use the design view to do this. You don't have to do it. I mean, and here you have buttons in the if you want to, you can add a form, and you can add a form, and then a button inside your form. All right, definitely you can do that, and we're going to do that anyway because you can't see the canvas. But I need to do that in order to do what? In order to add text fields too. So I'm going to add a form here, and this is what the form looks like. If you go to the code, we inserted a form before the canvas. Okay. Inside the form, I will add a couple buttons. Okay. I'll do it with the design just so you can get used to it both ways. And for the action and the post, the action is nothing. I don't know if you're familiar with the form. The action is the method that you will call on the server when you click on the submit button. So if we go back to the design, and I'm going to add a couple buttons here. Here is a button. All right. And we're gonna call that draw, and the label, there is no label on this. We will set the value. Okay, the ID is draw. We'll go back to this in a minute, and then I'm gonna add another button here, and I'm gonna call clear drawing. Hit OK. No label tag. We don't need label here. Alright, so the value, let's select the first one. The value is actually what appears on top of the button. So I'm going to say draw here, and here I'm going to say clear. Okay. Now if I go to the code, this is what do I have? I have two buttons. I have a form. Now I said I don't need a label for this, so I'm going to delete the label. The label is like a text that appears before the button. Okay, it was embedded within a label, so we're not going to have a label here. Okay, the type of these is submit. If you go back to the design and select the first one, you'll see here the submit, right? And it says reset. Reset submit, as I said, it submits the form. Reset clears the fields in that form. None makes it a button. So I'm going to say here both of them are, well, one of them is we make it reset. So if I go back to my design, my code, you'll see now it says button. One is called button and one is called reset. The reset will clear the button. Now what I want to do, I want to click, when the user click on that button, I want to call my own function. So I have a function called, remember I have a function called draw in center. Now I want to make my own function. It's called draw. Okay, and I'm gonna have another function here, and I'm gonna call that on click. We'll come back to that later on. So now I need a function called draw. All right, and I need to define that in here. So this function is gonna get bigger, but to start with, I'll show you what is it going to look like. So you look in here, and this needs to be called draw. And we'll draw something randomly somewhere, not random. I'm going to show you, I'm going to make it, no, not red, yellow. And I'm going to say, I'm going to start, we're going to change this. So don't worry about this for now. we're going to say I'm going to start at a position 40, 40. So what happens now? Few things. First, when I start my canvas in JavaScript, it'll call this part. It defines the canvas and the context. Then it will draw a rectangle, draws another rectangle to get the borders, and then I call a function from JavaScript that does that. Okay, draw a center rectangle. Now this function is not being called. This function is called every time I click on the button that I added in here, which is input type button, draw, the name of it draw, the value is draw, and everything is draw. So if you say view in Chrome, yes. Now notice we have the buttons here. I don't have that rectangle yet, but if I click on draw, we got an error. Why is it not drawing? Alright, so let's check the developer tools, make sure we don't have an error. Maybe yellow is not spelled correctly again. Let's check the developer tools. Yeah, we have a lot of errors. We have uncut type. Object is not a function. Object is not a function. Alright, I think I've seen that error before. Okay, let's look at our code and determine what are the errors. So on click equal draw, that's fine. Input type, okay. And here function draw. What's the problem? Function draw. That is weird. It should work. Alright, I'm gonna call it my draw. See if there's a problem with the naming. Rectangle. I don't think there is, but we never know. Because draw and draw and draw are all the same name. So this is, I bet you this is the problem. The name of these and this was the problem. Okay, so let's try it now. Yes, and then if I click on draw, I got that. Alright. Okay, so that is our first function, and then we have two buttons. When you click on that, it calls this function that draws this hard-coded value in this area. In the next video, what I'm going to show you is how we add some validation, and we will add some input fields like X and Y and color, so that way the user can select X, can enter X, Y, and then pick the color they want, and then based on that the user will draw the rectangle in the area that they want. Alright, we're done with the second part.